California's Gold is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association.
When it was constructed back in the early 1900s, it was considered one of the largest, most important, and most complicated engineering projects in the entire world. And it literally changed the face of California. Well, today, almost 100 years later, this huge project still on a daily basis directly affects the lives of millions of Californians. It's big, it's massive, it's important, it's historic, it's beautiful. It's Big Creek, and it's very much a part of California's gold. Okay, we are starting our Big Creek adventure. I'm standing here with Roger Taylor from Southern California, Edison. Roger, first off, we need to kind of set the stage as to exactly where we are. Where is Big Creek? I'm not sure how to say where we even are starting this thing.
Our project is located about 60 miles northeast of Fresno, California, here in the central Sierras of California.
We're out in the middle of a big forest.
That's correct. This is the Sierra National Forest.
Well, it's isolated today. When it was built back in the early 1900s, it was really out in the middle of nowhere, wasn't it?
Originally, it was a 4-day horse trip from Fresno to get here. Then when they put the railroad in, they had adopted some trucks to run on the railroad. It was about an 8-hour trip each way, which was head and shoulders above.
Yeah, but it was still, it's always been an isolated place.
Yes, it has.
How do you even describe what this huge project was and is all about?
This is a 1,000 megawatt hydroelectric project that was started in the early 1900s. It's spread over about 1,250 square miles. And it is quite isolated, especially in the backcountry areas, but it's absolutely beautiful here.
And it was and is this amazing engineering feat.
They liken the building of the Big Creek project to the building of the Panama Canal. And you're absolutely correct. It was a tremendous project. At the height of construction, we had over 5,000 people working here.
And when you say working here, you're not just talking about working here at Powerhouse number 1. You're talking about working at how many different facilities all over this project?
Well, there are 5 man-made lakes, and then there are 8 powerhouses. There's 23 units with a combined output of 1,000 megawatts.
And there are tunnels, there are pipes, there are dams, there are lakes, there are power lines.
There's the reservoirs, and then there are flow lines that connect the reservoirs to the penstocks, which are the high-pressure pipes that bring the water to the plant itself. There's also siphons that go from reservoirs underneath rivers and then up to continue down the flow lines to the forebays.
Who thought up all of this? Who would look at an area, an undisturbed, huge natural area like this and say, this is a perfect place to build something that will bring water and electricity to Southern California?
Well, Henry Huntington was an entrepreneur in Southern California that had a transportation company, the Big Red Cars, and he was looking for an inexpensive power source for his transportation company. Well, hydroelectric power in those days was in its infancy, and he contacted a fellow that was a pretty eminent civil engineer at the time by the name of John Eastwood. Now, John Eastwood had done some work in this area for the forerunners to PG&E, and so he was familiar with it. And so John Eastwood came up here on horseback and leading a mule and envisioned this whole project.
It was a pretty intricate, complicated project, and that's what we're going to see on this adventure, because this is literally just the beginning of everything right here. But this is powerhouse number one. So this is kind of the starting point of almost every adventure here, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Big Creek 1 is sort of our flagship, but we have actually generation above Huntington Lake, and the project itself begins back at Florence and Edison Lakes, where we'll get to as we travel.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of traveling, but let's just stand right here because it's loud here, but it's loud because this place is still generating electricity just like it has been doing since the early part of the 1900s.
That's correct. Over the years we have updated the equipment, but the penstocks and the generator shafts and stator frames and the rotors are original equipment. So yeah, it's been a very productive facility over the years, and we continue to make investment to keep it viable.
And this sound we're hearing is the sound of electricity being made.
Well, the primary sound here is the water coming out of the turbines.
Yeah, but there
are turbines
hum going.
Yes, and that is the windage from the generators.
Yeah, so there's something going on in there, and that's where we're heading right now. We're going over to powerhouse number one to check it out. Okay, this is exciting. We've now come across right to the front of powerhouse number one, and look at this. Boy, this really gives you the sense of power here, of how much energy is coming out of here.
Yes, it does. This plant's good for about 90 megawatts and about 730 cubic feet per second of water.
Well, you keep talking in terms of megawatts and cubic feet. I'm talking in terms of just the sense of power and beauty and the whole thing, the architecture of the building. It's all kind of overwhelming when you get up close to it, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Kind of shakes your chest a little bit.
All right, we're going to go inside and take a look inside powerhouse number one. And if you think there's energy out here, listen to what's inside. Come on, Bob. Okay, we're inside powerhouse number one. You can hardly hear yourself talking here. Roger, this is pretty impressive. That looks very old. Is that original?
All these units are original units. They've been updated over the years, but this is the original configuration.
Boy, that looks old, and it looks like it's generating a lot of power.
These units are good for about 17 megawatts. And the fourth unit at the end is good for about 30.
Here's the information right here. Built in 1913, the design had 1,960 feet. I don't know what that means. 24,000 horsepower, 17,500 kilowatts. The original cost was $72,000. But look at this, the current replacement cost for the generator alone is $1,040,000. So these are expensive to replace these days, aren't they, Rob?
Yes, they are. A lot of money from the original investment.
And it says right here, welcome tours. Do tours come through here?
We do weekly tours through the summer months for the vacationers that come to the area. It's every Thursday at 1 o'clock.
So people can sign up for a tour?
Yes. We do a little video about the project and bring them down to the plant and show them around.
I can't hear a word he's saying. I'm lip reading everything he's saying. I think you just said there are tours available, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Okay, now I can hear myself think, Roger. You've brought us, we're still in powerhouse number one. We've come into the Edison Big Creek Museum here, which has a little bit of everything here. Here's the panel that talks about the man of vision, John S. Eastwood. He's the guy who kind of put all of this together from an engineering standpoint. There's Mr. Huntington, who paid for all of this.
That's correct.
Big business.
Huge business.
He's the one who made all the money out of this.
Well, he's the one also that fronted the money to build it. So.
Absolutely. And here's a little model of one of the generating units like the ones we saw right downstairs.
That's correct. This is a model of one of the units here at Big Creek 1. The water comes in the penstock down here through the lower conduit, and then the needle focuses the water on the turbine. The turbine's connected to the shaft. The shaft is connected to the generator, and that's how we make electricity with water.
Been making it that way here since the early 1900s.
That's correct.
All right, now here's what we're really here for. Let's walk over here in front of this map, because this gives, for the first time, we're seeing a map that shows us just how big the Big Creek project really is. Starting off with the fact that where are we right now, Roger?
Right now we're here at Powerhouse 1.
This little red
That's correct.
powerhouse
this is kind of
right
the
here.
little town of Big Creek 1 here.
And then we've got Powerhouse, what's that one?
Powerhouse 2.
2.
Powerhouse 8. Mammoth Powerhouse. Powerhouse 3.
There's another one over.
Powerhouse 4.
Then there's one here.
This is Eastwood Power Station, and also Portal Powerhouse.
And what are all these things in blue? Obviously lakes, obviously water.
This map represents the area of the entire project, which is about 1,250 square miles. The project begins back at Florence and Edison Lakes.
So all of this is interconnected, and this represents a tunnel, a huge underground tunnel or pipes that is bringing water down from these lakes down to all these generating powerhouses down here.
That's correct. And there's a fair amount of water that misses Florence and Edison Lakes. That water ends up in the South Fork of the San Joaquin River.
All the way up here.
Yes, and flows down to Mammoth Reservoir. Then from Mammoth Reservoir,
it comes
through
down
the Mammoth Tunnel, through Mammoth Powerhouse and into Dam 6.
Wow.
Now Dam 6 is a pretty important place in the project. It's where all three of the water chains come together, the Huntington chain, the Shaver chain, and the Mammoth chain, and it also sits at the confluence of the San Joaquin River and Big Creek. So it's a kind of an important place.
And isn't it interesting that you're telling us all this right here by the picture of Mr. Eastwood, because he's the man
that envisioned the whole thing.
Envisioned
Yes.
how all of this was tied together and how it would all. Is this project to generate electricity or to funnel water down into the San Joaquin Valley?
Let me talk to you a little about that. The water continues from Dam 6 down to Big Creek 3 and Big Creek 4, then it continues down the San Joaquin River through 2 PG&E powerhouses and into Millerton Lake, where the water is then used in the Central Valley project for irrigation for agricultural purposes.
So the water is used eventually for agricultural and for drinking water purposes.
Absolutely.
And the power is sent all over Southern California.
So you begin to get a sense of the scope of the project has several facets to it. Badly needed clean, green, renewable hydroelectric power. Also for flood control, because in the days before the building of the Big Creek project and Millerton Lake, whenever there was a lot of water, it would flood the Central Valley.
So before this project, none of these lakes, these reservoirs were here. This was all created for the Big Creek project.
That's correct. All the major lakes are man-made lakes.
So we've got Mammoth Lake, Huntington Lake, Shaver Lake,
Edison Lake,
and Florence Lake.
That's correct.
So you created 5 huge lakes, which are today used for recreation,
right,
and also used for the generation of power, and also used for the distribution of water. So there were a lot of, this was just an all-encompassing project from the very start.
That's correct.
Okay, we have left the museum and now we've come just a few feet down from the museum to, well, this looks important, fellas. Where are we right now?
We're in the control room of the Big Creek 1 powerhouse.
This is the control room, which means what? We don't know what we're looking at here. You got to help us out a little bit.
What this is that pretty much everything you see here tells us what's going down on the floor. what our gate limits are, how much water we're pushing through, the RPMs of the unit, how much megawatts we're putting out onto the power lines.
So you're always raising or lowering or changing, increasing or pulling back. It's not a constant thing.
Basically what it is, we'll have a schedule from dispatch, our dispatch office. They'll control how much megawatts. Some of these units will come down, some will come back up, and it's basically what's demanded out there on the lines.
Now this is one of 8 powerhouses. So is there something like this at each one of the 8 powerhouses in the Big Creek project?
Yes, that's correct. Every powerhouse has a control room just like this.
And you're all kind of tied together.
We're all tied together.
Well, it's complicated, it's interesting, it's also a lot quieter in here than it is right out there where those turbines and those generators are going.
That's correct. We want to be able to at least talk, without having to yell at each other.
Yeah, this is nice and this is interesting, and this looks a little more modern than it would have been in the early days, but in those early days, basically the same thing was going on right here.
Yes, we're kind of a little cross between a little bit of old and new. As you can see, our digital ones have been replaced and upgraded, and some of these have been around for quite a while.
And do you get a sense kind of history and continuation when you're sitting here looking at these gauges and realizing that individuals have been doing this since the early part of the last century?
Oh yes, just walking in the door and seeing these units have been here since the start. So
you're part of history.
Exactly.
This shows it better than almost anything. We were just driving down this road and look up here on the side of this mountain. Roger, this is almost impossible to believe, but those are penstocks. That's water. I guess it's coming down, right?
That's correct. The water's coming from Huntington Lake down those penstocks into the plant itself.
So all through this project, there are penstocks just built coming right down the side of these huge mountains.
That's correct. Generally there's a lake and then a flow line that's relatively low pressure. Then they come to the penstocks, and that's where the pressure gets developed as the water comes down the hill.
Boy, there's a lot of pressure coming down there because that's almost a straight. How tall are we talking about, that drop right there?
Well, the spill elevation at Huntington is 6950, and the spill elevation here at Dam 4, which is a tail race for Big Creek 1, is 4810, so it's about 2,100 feet. And to put it in perspective, if we had a penstock leak near the plant, the water would go about 2,000 feet in the air. Penstock pressure here is about 900 pounds per square inch.
Boy, you're giving a lot of engineering facts here. What you're basically saying is there's a lot of water coming down there, and there's a lot of pressure behind it.
That's correct.
We're hitting the road, and a windy, steep road it is. And Roger tells us that this is the original road that was built back in the early 1900s when they first started putting together this whole Big Creek project. And now we have stopped for just a minute. Look at this scenery looking out over here, these beautiful trees and this mountain. Here's the road sign. We've come 2 miles from Big Creek. We've got 2 more miles to go to get to Huntington Lake. That's our destination. But we stopped right here because look what we spotted over here on the side of the road. Fellas, I hate to disturb you. Can you get up for just a minute?
Yeah, all right.
What's the deal here? Are you Edison employees?
No, we're not. We're just tourists like everybody else. Just trying to have a good time.
Just tourists. Your name is?
I'm Ron Stanley.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Billy.
Nice to meet you.
Mike McCrory.
From?
Fresno. I'm from San Jose.
In Menlo Park.
So you've just come up here on your bikes.
That's right.
To have a vacation.
Yeah.
That's right. Get away from it all and enjoy these old roads.
Well, we are definitely away from it all up here. Now, do you know a little bit about the history of where we are right now?
Well, I think Mike probably knows the most about it, but yeah, this was all, the dams were all built in around 1911, I think, thereabouts. All the equipment came up out of Big Creek on this little trail, and they had a rail system that hauled it all up. So this road probably is from, 1910 or 20s.
We try to recreate that. We're staying at the Lakeview Cottages up here, which are the original barracks buildings. that they had all the workers in that built the dams for the lake.
That's down in Shaver Lake, right?
No, it's up here in Huntington.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
there are places to stay up there.
Right, and they're the original buildings that the workers stayed in, but they've been converted into, you know, tourist cottages.
So you like the history of the place?
We go and we walk the penstocks, and you know, there's lots of neat stuff to go see of the hydro project and everything, and it's beautiful.
You've been up here before.
This is my first time. These guys have been coming up here for 10 years. And they said, oh, you got to come up. So I brought my boat up, and, you know, they've been up here for 2 weeks.
They're heading up the road, and we're going to be following right behind them. We're all heading up to Huntington Lake, the old-fashioned way, on the old road. We have arrived at Huntington Lake. Well, actually, we're at one of the 3 dams built to create Huntington Lake back in the early 1900s. Here's the lake over here, and look at this. This is another one of those picture postcard views. What a spectacular lake. This is one of the prettiest lakes, isn't it, Roger?
It's my favorite lake on the project. It's absolutely beautiful here.
Now, what was here before this was all dammed up? Was this just a little river here? Or?
No, there was a meadow out here that was relatively small, and a small lake that was a natural lake. And then we built 3 dams to create the storage
this
here.
lake. Oh, wow. And today, it's being used. There must be some good fishing going on out here.
Excellent.
What have you
Going on
caught?
today. Well, we've got 9 right now, unless he's pulling in one right now, and then it'll be 10, and we'll be done.
So you've got your dinner. You've already caught your dinner.
Yes, we have.
And here they come.
Yep, these are rainbow trout.
Rainbow trout.
Great breakfast and dinner.
Too bad you've got such a lousy view here while you're fishing.
Isn't it just pathetic?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Been doing it for 50 years.
Right here.
Been wonderful, yep, the whole time.
Wow. And look over here, we've got some more fish. Everybody's showing off their fish all of a sudden. Oh boy, you got a nice catch here too.
Yes.
Now
All
they've
rainbow
been
trout.
coming here, they said, for 50 years.
Yes.
Have you all been coming here a long time as well?
Just about a year or so.
So this is a new discovery for you.
Yes.
And how do you feel about
It's just gorgeous.
sitting here
It's
and
just beautiful.
looking at this?
Yeah, we were camping up here 2 weeks ago, and now we're camping just a little below here. But yeah, it's beautiful here.
Yeah.
You can't beat it.
Look at this. We got the fish. We got happy people. Good dinner.
Yeah, we got dinner.
And this beautiful scenery. And of course, this is much more than just a lake. All of this is making electricity and providing water for Central and Southern California. This is Huntington Lake, one of 5 lakes in the Big Creek project. Now it gets very interesting. At first glance, this just looks like a lot of water coming out of a big pipe there, but according to Roger, this water is the beginning and the vast majority of the water that makes up Huntington Lake.
That's correct, Huell. Water comes from Florence and Edison lakes down the Ward Tunnel to Portal Powerhouse here, which is the first generation opportunity on the project.
Now wait a minute. There are 2 more lakes. Where are they?
They're about approximately 20 miles behind us,
Up.
east of this location.
All right, and this water is coming from those lakes down here to form Huntington Lake.
That's correct.
And how's it getting that 20 miles?
Through Ward Tunnel, which is about 14 miles long and about 15 feet in diameter, and carries all the water from Florence Lake, from Edison Lake, and also from Bear Diversion down the tunnel, and comes through the plant here at Portal and starts its journey down the project from Huntington Lake.
This is unbelievable that they built a 14-mile tunnel, right through the mountain?
Hard rock mining.
You'd never know that standing here looking at this. I'm not sure that the casual visitor would know where that water comes from, but once you understand the connection between all of these lakes, all of these dams, and all of these powerhouses, you begin to understand that this water for Huntington Lake is coming from two other lakes, and it's going from Huntington Lake to another lake, to another lake, and it's working all the way down.
With powerhouses in between each one.
That's where that expression came from, the hardest working water in California.
Hardest working water in the world. And that is exactly it. We use the water over and over again for the generation of clean, green, renewable hydroelectric power.
There are all kinds of beautiful little cabins all around the lake up here, a lot of them dating way back in history. Roger has now brought us to this particular cabin because not only is it representative of the beauty and the history of so many of these cabins around here, but there's a great story about the weather that can be demonstrated by this cabin, because it's beautiful now. It's summertime, it's warm, it's sunny. It's not always that way up here in this part of California, is it?
That's correct, Huell. This cabin is owned by a friend, and in the winter of 82, 83, we cross-country skied in here. And on that trip, the ridge line that you see up there hit me at the ankle. And the chimney cap over there hit me at the knee.
Wait a minute. You snowshoed in here.
Oh, we cross-country skied.
Cross-country skied in here, and the snow was high enough that the top of the roof
hit me at the ankle.
Hit you at the ankle?
Yeah, and it's hard to understand what the snow accumulation is around here, but that's a pretty graphic representation of what can happen here.
And you see that again, it demonstrates just how harsh the conditions were and are up here, but especially were up here when they were building all of this in the early 1900s.
That's correct. Temperatures frequently were well below zero and would only get up maybe toward freezing in the warm part of the day.
Were they still able to work in those conditions?
Yes, they set it all up, and they would shovel snow as they needed to get to the construction sites, and work continued year-round.
I don't even know how they could find the construction sites with all that snow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. That's, like I say, when you think of snow being that deep here, that's a lot.
Well, now we've come on another one of these amazing, hair-raising trips down a tiny little dirt road that's definitely not on anybody's map. We have been following this long, huge flow line that's bringing water from Huntington Lake down to Big Creek Powerhouse number 1, and we have reached the top of the mountain. And this is what we were looking at from down below earlier today, right?
Yes, it is, Huell. This is actually the tops of the penstocks.
All right, now these are the flow lines. They're called flow lines.
These are the penstocks. The flow lines bring water from the lake to the penstocks.
What we were just following was a flow line.
That's correct.
As soon as it gets here, it becomes a penstock.
That's right. And this is where the water pressure starts to build as the water goes down the hill.
It's going down, and boy, is it going down. Come on. Let's go down here, and we're going down here carefully because look what's up in front of us here. We are literally on the side of the mountain, and for the first time you begin to see, Roger, this penstock begin to make its first turn so that it's heading down the mountain. That's where this pressure begins to really build, right up here.
This is the really steep sections that we saw from below this morning, and it's a very steep angle all the way down.
We can't even get out there, but once it gets right out there, it's going almost straight down.
Yes, it is. But you can see the town of Big Creek here a little bit. It kind of sits on a point of land that you can see there.
So we're looking at Big Creek, and we're looking out to some of this 1,200 and how many miles?
1,250 square miles.
That covers the Big Creek project.
That's correct.
And what is this right here? This looks like a train track.
This is an inclined hoist, and it's standard gauge railroad that goes all the way down to Big Creek. And the way they built the penstocks is they had a winch house up here at the top, and you can see the little winch car here, and they put the sections of pipe on the railroad car and winched them up the hill.
Wait a minute, they would winch sections of this pipe all the way straight up the side of this mountain?
That's correct. And the rail bed would take turns to sort of follow the contours, and these rollers here are what the cables rolled on when they were winching the cars.
These right here?
Yes.
So these go back to 1910 themselves.
That's correct. And the way that it worked is that this signal line here, the the fella had a stick with a piece of rod between it, and there was a systems as longs and shorts to tell him to stop, start, go down, go up. And we still have a very similar piece of machinery that's still in service over on the Bishop side at Rush Creek Powerhouse going up to Gem and Agnew Lakes.
Boy, let's walk down just a little bit further. I don't want to go sliding down the side of this hill, but boy, the wind is coming up, and it really gives you an idea of just what an engineering feat this was to get these penstocks up to take the water down to the powerhouse.
And it was, and when you rode the winch car up, you faced downhill, because if not, your head was between your knees, as it were.
So wait a minute, people would be in the cars themselves being winched up the side of this railroad?
Yes, and in the early days, when they'd have somebody new come along, they'd give the winchman the high sign, and he'd let it careen down the hill a little bit. And then he'd catch it with the brakes before there was disaster. But that night he couldn't eat in the cookhouse because there was somebody wanting to skin him.
That is just, and it's wonderful that you've got parts of the old rail still here to remind us of that early history.
The old rail and the old rollers, the whole bit. And there are several remnants of the old incline hoists at each of the powerhouses down the way.
Okay, I've hiked down the line by myself here with my little handheld camera to get even a closer view of the view looking right over the side of this mountain. Look at this, it goes straight down from here all the way down the side of this mountain. This is where that little car would have been pulled up, winched up, full of people and supplies. Can you imagine riding up this track in 1915 when they were building this project? It was something to see then, and it's something to see now. This is a big part of what that engineering marvel was all about. Before we leave, I just had to do this historical reenactment. There's the winch house, there's the winch, there's the cable. Here's the old original car that would have been pulled up and down the side of the mountain bringing people and supplies. Can you imagine riding in this thing over the side of this mountain? It's 2,100 feet from here to the bottom, and you would have been riding this thing right down these tracks all the way down. Now that would have been a ride to remember. As our Big Creek adventure continues, we've already visited Powerhouse number 1, which Roger went online back in
1913.
1913. We saw all those big, beautiful old turbines and generators. But what's interesting about the Big Creek project, it's not just something from the past, it's constantly being updated and upgraded and expanded. And here to tell us about that is
Dave Whitlaw.
Okay, Dave, we are standing here in front of the John S. Eastwood Power Station. But I got to tell you right off the top of the bat here, this does not look anything like Powerhouse number 1 or any of the other powerhouses in the, system up here.
It's quite different from the other powerhouses in the system. This one's built underground, about 1,000 feet below the surface of the ground.
Wait a minute. This power station is 1,000 feet below us.
Well, not below us, but the top of where you could actually come in from the elevator.
All right, so is this the only way in and the only way out? Or
we have two ways in.
Okay.
This is a one-way that we're going to go in today.
All right, this is the way we're going to go. And come on, let's take a little preview here because we're going to be driving down in the official Edison vehicle here. But just to kind of give a preview, and this is kind of fun, as soon as you walk in here, here we go. We got the echo going. Hello? Hello? Big Creek calling. A great echo and sound to it.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, we took advantage of the topography for this unit, and that's why it's so different from the others.
Oh my gosh. Look at this. We are in an honest-to-goodness tunnel situation here, Dave.
That's correct. We'll be going pretty slow because it is a steep incline here. And once we get to the bottom, it'll level out, and that's where we'll see some big doors, and behind that is where the generator is.
Now, this looks like it was just blasted right out of the mountain here. Was this built just like a mining tunnel would have been built in the old days?
That is correct. They used explosives, and they used core drilling, and we have a lot of holes along the side where they tested the granite to make sure that the integrity of the tunnel was good. It was started in 1983, and it took until 1987 when it was put online commercially. It was under budget, and it was ahead of schedule, and best of all, there was no accidents.
This access tunnel is about 9/10 of a mile long, and we're going down at about a 9% grade. So that when we get to the bottom, we'll be 1,000 feet below the surface, as Dave mentioned.
Do you have people coming here, other engineers from all over the world, to look at this thing?
This is definitely one of the crown jewels of Edison. And we have had people from all over the world come to see not only this plant for what it is, but also the control system, which is unique in the world as well.
Well, I don't know what's at the end of this tunnel for sure, but just getting there is kind of an adventure.
Oh, yes, it is. And as you notice, it's starting to get cool down here, too.
It's getting cool, and there's some water on the roadway, so there's some water seeping through the mountain.
That's true.
Are we there yet?
Just about.
We are at the end of the access tunnel. We have got our hard hats on. We're playing by all the rules and regulations here. And I assume that there's something behind this door.
Yeah, this is door number 2.
Well, let's go in and see what's behind door number 2.
Here you go.
Go on in there, Cameron. Watch your step. Look at this. This is overwhelming. How high up is that ceiling? You know?
It's about 100 feet tall.
Wow. And what's going on in here?
Well, the noise you hear is the generator running. It's not very loud, is it?
No, it's not, and I don't see any water either.
Well, we hope to not see any water. That's going through the penstocks and the tunnels and back out to the lake.
So all of the water that's running these generators is underneath us?
Yes, it's just right below the generator. We'll see that here where the pipes are real soon.
Where's the water coming from?
It's coming from Balsam Meadow Forebay, which is coming from Huntington Lake.
And how did you get this equipment in here?
Well, big trucks. They came right down that tunnel.
Now there's not very many people working down here.
No, it's an unmanned station. It's controlled from our central location at Big Creek 3. Some interesting things about this project is the crane you see up here was the longest single piece of equipment to ever come up Highway 168. And
that came up in one piece.
Well, yes.
Wow.
And then the transformer bank, which you'll see in a little bit, was the heaviest single piece of equipment to ever come up Highway 168.
So this continues the Big Creek tradition of being the biggest, the best, and setting records at whatever it's associated with.
That's correct, Huell.
No doubt about it, Big Creek is an overwhelming place. And so far, we've seen a lot of turbines and generators, pipes, penstocks, and tunnels. All of it providing electricity and supplying water for millions of Californians. But a major part of understanding and appreciating what Big Creek is all about are the human stories connected with it. And that's what we discovered on the second day of our visit. Okay, it's early morning. We're starting off our second day here at Big Creek, and we are starting it off literally in the cookhouse. And here in the cookhouse with me this morning are two cooks.
Yes.
Now, that's your job description, right?
Yes, it is.
Now, you know that you're following a proud tradition of cookhouse cooks here at Big Creek.
Yeah, I believe so.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I don't know how long the cookhouse has been here. I've been here for a little over 3 years, in Big Creek for 15. We provide meals for the crew. They're out there working. We try and provide a warm, homey environment for them.
Well, now that's part of the tradition, though, because these cookhouses started in the very early days of Big Creek. They had to feed those hungry workers who were building all of this.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And we have continued that tradition.
What's a normal breakfast here at the cookhouse? It looks like a hearty meal.
It is. It's early, I can tell you that.
Let's take a look. What are we pulling out of here?
Some cinnamon rolls.
Oh, look at this.
We have a safety meeting this morning, and so we are providing snacks
Oh my
everyone.
Gosh. Look at this.
And we
now
will frost
that's
them.
hearty food right
That
there.
is good eats.
You are connected in lots of ways with Edison, aren't
Well,
you?
we work for Edison. I
right,
work for Southern
but your
California.
family.
Yes, my husband, my father-in-law, my brother, cousins. Been with the company for many years.
So you're keeping it all in the family.
That's right. That's
Where did
right.
your other cook go? Come
Here
on
she
over
is,
here. We need
Carolyn.
to get a shot of the two of you over here together doing your thing, because this is part of the Big Creek tradition right here, the cookhouse. So here's the deal. Carolyn and Marie are bringing in our hearty Big Creek cookhouse breakfast: pancakes, sausage, scrambled eggs, coffee, juice, milk, fruit, no tofu, no bean sprouts. Right?
That's right.
Nobody's ever asked for tofu, have
No,
they?
I don't believe so.
Nobody's ever asked for bean sprouts.
No, they have not.
This is a hearty Big Creek breakfast. Give us a thumbs up, fellas. We're getting ready to start the day the right way. Well, after a hearty flapjack breakfast in the cookhouse, we went directly to the general store in downtown Big Creek, where we'd been invited by the locals to attend a party. More food. They're bringing in the food this morning.
That's right.
What have you got there?
Summer strata. How's that?
A summer, can we take a look at this?
You may.
A summer
Oh, how
strata, which means what?
Well, it's just a layered, wonderful summer dish.
Wow.
With lots of tomatoes, pesto.
This is very exciting, what's going on here. What is going on here this morning?
You know, it doesn't take much in Big Creek for us to have a party.
We're having a party this morning.
In town, and we just all get together, and that's what we do in Big Creek.
Well, you invited us to come by and be a part of this. And this is inside the general store.
Yes.
And how did you put the word out? Who's invited? Who knew what to bring?
Walking their dog. Hey, tomorrow, 8 o'clock, come to the store. Somebody mailing, picking up their mail next door. We holler, come over, and Nancy, my neighbor, called people, and so we just all got together, and here we are.
Well, thank you very much for kind of hosting this. What is the occasion?
California Gold. California Gold is our occasion.
Just the fact that we're here, you're having a party.
It's true. You ask we had a radio station come and visit. We had a bridge opening. Anytime we have any event, this is what we do.
Just the fact that we're here is cause for a party. Well, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
I'll shake you with this.
Everybody give us a wave. All the friendly people here to greet us early this morning. That's the way you start your day in Big Creek. Thank you all very much. This is our second breakfast, by the way. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're out walking your dogs this morning.
Yes, I was.
I hear you do this every morning just like clockwork.
I do.
Well, what's it like living, or do you live in Big Creek, don't you?
Yes, I do.
What's it like living here?
Well, it's great. It's the best place I ever found.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I came in 1960. He started working for Southern California Edison. And eventually I became a nurse here, and so we stayed.
Yeah.
We stayed in retirement, too.
So you're glad you stayed?
Yes, I did.
And what was it that made you stay?
I think the beauty and the things to do, and we raised 8 kids here. We were all very safe,
Yeah.
and we felt, well, these are neighbors. These are real neighbors. They're like having friends.
Yeah.
And your family, their family. We meet them down in stores, and we think, oh, there's my family.
The final destination on our Big Creek adventure took us to the back country, the high country, a place even today way off the beaten track, but a place where we found a rich human Big Creek story.
Well, we have reached our destination, and look at this. We have arrived at Florence Lake. This beautiful lake, there's the dam in the distance, the mountains in the distance, the blue skies, the clear water. Of course, this one of 5 lakes created by Edison for the Big Creek project. This is an absolutely spectacular setting. But as beautiful as the setting is, the beautiful setting is not really why we have come here today. We have come here today to hook up with this fellow right here. Actually, he rode with us up in the car. His name is Rick Frampton, and Rick, you have an amazing family story to tell about your family and Florence Lake.
Yes, sir, I do. Back in the Depression, the jobs were hard to come by, and my uncle worked at Big Creek Powerhouse number 1, and he got a hold of my dad, Robert C. Frampton, and told him that there was a job available up here at Florence Lake as head dam tender and stream gauger. Based on that, my dad took the job and proposed to my mother. They got married the next day, and 2 days later they headed back here into the back country, not knowing what they were going to find, but they knew they had a job.
It was a job, it was during the Depression, and it was in the middle of nowhere back here.
They paid him $30 a month, a roof over their head, and a few groceries.
Now, what was his job description exactly?
He was head dam tender, stream gauger, and snow surveyor. During the summer, he did a lot of repair work out here on the dam.
So he had to check the dam to make sure everything was okay?
He had to make sure everything was in working order. There are a lot of gauges out there on the dam that send information and record information for Big Creek and Fresno. He also had to go out there on the dam in the cold of winter and break ice off of certain gauges out there so that they could be read, because they had to keep a constant record book of that information going down to Big Creek, and then from Big Creek down to Fresno and LA, because they had to know what kind of a runoff they were going to have so that they could provide enough electricity to everyone in Southern California.
And he also had to get on skis and go all back in all of this country over here to check the snow levels.
That was the snow surveying part of the job, and he had 10-foot skis. He had seal skins that went on the bottom to give him grip for climbing uphill, and then of course the hair went the opposite way going downhill so he could ski all right fast downhill.
There's some great pictures, still pictures. In fact, there's some wonderful movies of your mom and dad skiing out in here. Where would that have been?
When they had some time off, my father and mother would ski across the lake, and they would go over and ski on those polished granite domes over there. And they would climb up, or they would do a herringbone up and then ski back down. My mother had never skied before, and my father was associated in one of the founding fathers of Sierra Club, Southern California skiers,
so he knew
and
how
ski
to
mountaineers, so he knew, and so he taught my mother, and they just had a ball back there. That was one of their big winter playgrounds over there.
Well, it was a winter playground that they literally had to themselves.
No lift lines, nobody to mess with, just them.
Let's walk right over here, because this is very exciting to bring you back to this spot where your mom and dad lived for those 3 years. Explain exactly where we are right now, Rick.
Where we're standing at now here at Florence Lake, we're standing in front of the Edison Company house that my mother and father lived in for 3 years. And my mother was one of only 2 women that was allowed to come back in here by Edison Company.
There was a lady, Lila Lofberg, that was back here for 3 years stint before my mother, and she wrote her book. And then my mother and dad came in. After that, it was just men only.
So your mom and dad were out here in the middle of nowhere. How did they survive? How did they get their supplies? How did they...
Well, to start off with, they had to bring everything in on the back of an old flatbed truck. They were here 8 months for the winter, and they were snowed in. It was just them, their dog Lady, and their cat Tom.
So literally they were snowed in here for 8 months at a time.
Yeah, that was every year for 3 years.
Just the two of them?
2 years they were by themselves. The third year Bartholomew came in and my father trained him to take over the job when my dad's job was done.
So there was a crowd of 3. It was getting crowded out here that last year.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so did your mom know anything? How did she get into all of this?
My mother knew nothing, and my mother came from a pretty well-to-do family in Southern California back during the Depression. And so what a culture shock for my mother. The first dessert she made for my father back here was a chocolate souffle. And it was because they were celebrating their honeymoon back here. They had only been married 3-4 days when they got here.
Wait a minute. Your dad married your mom. He brought her out here for the honeymoon.
Yes, sir. This was it. He proposed to her because he had a job. And this is where he brought her, and this is where they spent the first 3 years of their life together.
Well, it's a beautiful, spectacular setting. The view from up on that porch looking out is overwhelming, but after a while it could get lonely back here.
They didn't have a problem with loneliness, but the one problem that they did have is that my mother almost left. She made this chocolate souffle for my father, and it turned out as hard as these granite boulders you see here because she didn't know anything about altitude cooking yet. She actually got dressed in all her winter gear, lathered her whole face up with zinc oxide, and she headed out towards Kaiser Pass by herself. My father had come back about a half an hour after she had left from a trip down at the dam, and he knew she was gone. He knew why she was gone. He put on his skis and lickety-split, he chased her, and he caught her down.
Brought her back.
Brought her back.
And she stayed for 3 years.
She stayed here for 3 years and stayed with my father for 54 years.
And those must have been, because I know you've heard firsthand from them those stories, those must have been 3 of the most wonderful years of their lives.
They're very, very special years to them and to me too. Very, very special years. They imagine living back here by yourself and nothing here but Mother Nature.
How does it feel standing here in front of this cabin that meant so much to your mom and dad?
I can't say it in words, Mr. Hauser. I cannot put it in words.
You haven't been here in a long time,
No,
have
sir.
you?
I came back up here every summer with my parents when I was a little boy. The last time I was here at Florence Lake on this rock at this house, I believe I was either 16 or 17 years old. It was just before I went in the service.
Well, I mean, just standing here and soaking in the memories and the sense of their presence here.
Yeah, I feel it in me right now. I feel both of them with me here right now.
This is a perfect place to end this adventure because we have seen all of the technical aspects of the Big Creek project, the building of the lakes, the dams, the penstocks, all of the generating plants, the powerhouses, this huge project. But we've also heard the personal stories, like of the stories of your mom and dad, Bob and May Frampton,
yes,
who kind of in their own way represent the thousands, the tens of thousands of men and women who over the years have done their part to make Big Creek a success story.
And the Edison Company a success story.
And to make the Edison Company a success story. And I got to tell you, for all of us in Central and Southern California who flip our light switches and take that electricity for granted, this Big Creek project and the story of your parents and of the other people who came and built all of this and continue to man it and keep it growing and improving it, this should make us all aware of where our electricity comes from and appreciate the fact that if it weren't for the hard work of those early pioneers, California would not be the place it is today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Hauser.
Thank you very much.
Huell, it's been my pleasure.
We have had an absolutely wonderful day. We've had a wonderful experience up here. We have learned so much. And let's just end up right over here. Look at this. This beautiful, beautiful spot up here in the high country. It says it all with the natural beauty and with Florence Lake there below it. All of this part of the Big Creek project. All of this very much a part of California's gold. Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed our Big Creek adventure. What an amazing place, filled with history, past and present, and very much a part of California's gold. Now, if you'd like to go on this particular adventure again, share it with family or friends, or more importantly, donate a copy to your local school or library. Of course, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.